Runs, hits, and errors segment. Meredith, welcome. So rare to see Ichiro make an error last night. Unfortunately, last night's costly error, Ichiro said this afterwards: if I could have gone straight home from right field, I would have. I was that embarrassed. We're getting another look at it right here, Meredith. And, you know, you love to see, you don't like to see the error, but you do love to see the candor of Ichiro after the game there.
There's no question about it. That was a tough one, and that led Phil Hughes to have to throw more pitches in that fifth inning, an inning he didn't make it out of. And you heard Ichiro talking about it, what he had said after the game, but he really didn't want to talk about that error at all. He said, everybody saw what happened. I'm embarrassed. And he was asked, did you think the wall was closer? Were you afraid of running into the wall? And he said, everyone saw it. It was just bad. I don't want to make another one this season. So that was his fourth error of the season. His career high is 5. The Yankees, of course, hoping that that is the case, that he doesn't make another one this season. Now, Ichiro isn't in the lineup tonight, but it has nothing to do with that play yesterday. Here's Joe Girardi to explain.
He's had good at-bats. I mean, I was going to sit one of the lefties. I think Gardy sat in Tampa one day, and, you know, you just kind of go like that.
He's 12 for 7, though.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And Joe Girardi making some light of that small sample size. Ichiro is 4 for 7 against J-Happ. Only a few at-bats, so he doesn't really go off of that. But, Chris, a problem or a situation that Joe Girardi, not really a problem, a situation he'll have to deal with really the rest of the season. 4 outfielders, 3 spots. He has to decide who sits, who plays. And you saw Brett Gardner got a day off in Tampa. Ichiro tonight, it's always someone, especially with that DH spot now. It's not the case tonight, but Alex Rodriguez will get some DH days. Derek Jeter will get some DH days, so it kind of eliminates that for that 4th outfielder moving forward.
Now, let's go back to the mound last night with Phil Hughes out there. Again, not a good performance out of Hughes. He's 1-9 in his last 10 starts now, Meredith. Let me ask you this. Is his rotation spot in jeopardy, and is David Huff a viable option? Has that come up at all around the clubhouse lately?
It has come up, Chris. In fact, Joe Girardi was asked about it after the game last night, and he said right now Phil Hughes is in our rotation, but we're always evaluating. So the Yankees may have some decisions to make before his next start. And if you look at last night's numbers out of Phil Hughes, 4 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs, 3 of which were earned. And Joe Girardi kind of said, look, if you made it through that 5th inning, 5 innings, 3 earned runs wouldn't have looked as bad as that line right there is. But if you look at what David Huff has been able to do last 2 games against the Blue Jays, 8 1/3 combined innings, just 1 hit, also struck out 7, walked 5 in the process. So he's been throwing the ball extremely well. And you ask who is a viable option? Of course, David Huff, one of those guys, but he was a guy that the Indians moved to the bullpen because they didn't feel as though he could make it as a starter prior to designating him. He was starting with AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre, and he was up here for that one game. Larry Rothschild made an adjustment, something he worked on down in Scranton, and it certainly looks as though it has paid some high dividends. So he is throwing the ball well, certainly an option. You can maybe look to Adam Warren, but he's not all that stretched down, so I don't know that he'd really be the guy to go to. Michael Pineda is still shut down in Tampa, same with David Phelps, so there aren't a ton of options for Joe Girardi to choose from there.
The silver lining last night, Meredith, obviously was the return of the captain, Derek Jeter, to the lineup, but he had 2 strikes against him going into last night. 1, he had to face R.A. Dickey, and 2, they're playing on AstroTurf, so Joe Girardi has to keep a close eye on Derek Jeter, especially playing at shortstop and running on this turf. How does he feel? Did you get a sense of how Derek felt today or last night after playing on the turf?
Well, Chris, that was one of the first things I came in and looked at that lineup to see who was in it, who was DHing today, and Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez both in it and playing the field. So that leads me to believe that they're both feeling okay. Joe Girardi certainly encouraged that both of those guys came back after a day or a night on turf and didn't really have any symptoms of problems with their legs. So a good sign for the Yankees, and Derek Jeter back in that lineup playing shortstop. I'm sure he'd like to get some of those at-bats back against R.A. Dickey, but he said after the game last night it's just so tough. You swing and you hope the ball finds your bat. That's really all you can do against a knuckleballer. But interestingly enough, he actually faced 2 knuckleballers down in the minors prior to coming up here. So he did get a couple looks, but not quite the same as R.A. Dickey, who certainly throws harder than most.
David Justice used to say, if it's high, let it fly. If it's low, let it go. That was his advice on knuckleballers. Meredith, thank you very much. We will see you on the pregame show with Nancy in just a bit.